Hello, my name is Eldar Skjørten. I'm a music teacher and an ADE, Apple Distinguished Educator. And this is a recording from a session I had during Festival of Learning in the summer of 2021. Well, not exactly. I had some technical issues during the session, so I decided to do the recording once again. So this is the same content, just another recording. So we can skip the housekeeping and go on to what is this ADE, Apple Distinguished Educators. For those viewing this recording who don't know, it's a worldwide community of educators very much focused on teaching and learning with technology. And the Festival of Learning is something we have done both in 2020 and 2021, an online festival with lots and lots of interesting material or sessions for all kinds of teachers, all kinds of subjects, all kinds of content from all over the world. This is why I wake up in the morning and go to work. All children should be given opportunities to explore their own creative impacts. We all need to be creative. We all are creative. And children and youth growing up with a belief that they are creative, they can make solutions, they can find new ways of doing things, whether it be art or apps or a solution to everyday problems or challenges. Creativity is a way of mastering our lives. So this is what this session is going to be about. And it's about creativity and via something I called Musoji, the musical emoji. Because we have been dealing with emojis and animojis and memojis for a long time, and they all express emotions, but so does music. So let's call it Musoji. Part 1 is about what is a Musoji and why would we have students making Musojis. And then part 2, I'd like to share a short reflection around creativity. Can it be modeled? And then part 3 is about creating Musojis. And part 4, how to use this in our classes. It says 60 minutes and the session was 60 minutes. This recording will probably be a little bit shorter. So, what and why? Well, this is what I call a Musoji. It is the sound of an emoji, or maybe that's not accurate enough. A sound that expresses the same emotion as an emoji. Okay, once more. A sound that expresses the same emotion as an emoji. That can be different sometimes. And I think it's a good idea to make them really short, 5 to 15 seconds, and we'll come back to that later. So why? Yes, this is, yes. If you want to make your own Musoji as we go along in this recording, as you follow this recording, you can do that now. You can pause the recording in just a minute, and then find your own Musoji. Find your own emoji that you want to make a Musoji from. And I recommend using the yellow heads and avoid emojis that point towards a specific sound, like laughter, for instance, because students may often misinterpret that and make laughter as part of the sound. Of course, they can do that, but on the other hand, what we want is the sound of that expresses the same emotion. Not exactly the sound of laughter, perhaps, but the sound of the same kind of emotions. I find it useful to start with a sad emotion, a sad emoji. It's kind of easier. And before you play further on with this recording, you can also consider, is there a movement connected to this emoji? I mean, emoji is not moving, but is it the feeling, the emotion? Is it something that goes upwards or downwards, fast or slow? What kind of movement could you assign to this emoji? And what kind of texture? Is it like very dense or intense, or is it more relaxed? What kind of energy? We'll come back to this later. Now, if you want to follow and make your own Musoji, pause the recording now and then play when you're ready. Okay, now we will go on. So how may sound represent an emotion? An interesting part here is that if you try to think about this, and you can try to do some meta thinking, like what kind of thoughts do I need in order to answer this question? So I'm not really asking for your answer to the question on the screen now, but I'm recommending that you try to think about what kind of thoughts do you need to answer that question, because that's a kind of a meta thinking that is very useful. Then to the why. Why should students be making Musojis? There's a reflective part. Well, we can explore emotions. That's one part. And we can express ourselves. Or express something else. And very often, I find that when children are making music, their own music, composing their own music, it kind of focuses very much on the tools, where to tap, where to click, how to do this and how to do that. And then the art part of music comes in the background. What's your intention? Why are you making this music? What is this music supposed to express? What is the intention? So these very, very short sound designs or music, call it whatever you like, can be good for focusing on the intention, because we have the emotion in the beginning. It can be a sad emotion, and then the music is going to be sad. So we have an intention, expression. And all this is good for developing creative mindsets. Now, the skill part of making Musojis is about learning the tool, for instance, to explore sounds and functions in GarageBand. It's a great activity to learn and to know the sounds we have available, and also how we can use them, how we can use the tool. It's also a good thing to explore the skills, or to train our skills to give and receive feedback. Not all people think of receiving feedback as a skill, but really it is, because when you get feedback, let's say you get some great feedback, what do you do with it? How do you keep it? How do you use it to go on? And how do you store it in your mind in such a way that you can pick it up later? Or if you get feedback that says that you should do something, or suggested you doing something differently, and how do you use that feedback? So giving and receiving feedback, in my terms, is also have a skill part in it. And then comes the last point here, creating vertically. I'll come back to that soon. So part 2, can creativity be modeled? And yes, I believe it can, but there is this risk of telling students what to create rather than how to develop their own creativity. And if we tell them what to create, exactly where to tap, what sound to use, how to do this and how to do that, is there anything left of creativity? I wrote this article at globaledtech.com, and I recommend you read it. I'm actually quite satisfied with it. And I asked this question, but does it make sense to talk about creative activities? And I believe it doesn't, because no activity is creative. You don't get creative by making music or by drawing, but by the way you think while you're making music or while you're drawing. The way you think, that's the creativity, the mindset you're using. More of that in the article, but then if that's correct, and you can read the article and make up your own opinion about that. But if that's correct, that creativity is about a mindset, then we need to teach for creative mindsets. And how do we do that? And I have some suggestions. This is for sure not everything, but one thing is encourage exploring. Look for the unseen, listen for the unheard, think about the unthinkable. Another part is to make space for creativity, an open space for testing, for experimenting, trying out concepts and thoughts, and change our minds and fail, and to pull everything apart and build it up again. Maybe the same way, maybe in another way. Make those spaces. We need that for creativity. And also let students build their own voice, which we can do in very good ways with the iPad and other kinds of technology, and especially iPad, because we have this screen that we can use for our camera. We can make images, movies, drawings. We can make music. We can put it all together. There's so much creative possibilities in the technology. But modeling every tap on the iPad could then be contradictory if we aim for creativity. We need to urge them to explore their own curiosity. This means that, for instance, when making music, it won't always sound well, and it shouldn't always sound well, because if it always sounds good, then you're not trying new concepts. You have to try and fail, try again, and look for something unheard, previously unheard. Not everything needs to be unheard, but it's part of exploring, experimenting. So, in this context of Musojis, which are short activities over and over again, we need to make sure that we're modeling the process, not the content. So, as a teacher in class, I would not tell the students tap here, use this sound. I would spend some more time and have them explore by themselves. And I will model the process, not the content. So, here's the hands-on part. Let's create Musojis. And again, when we come to this part, you can stop the video anytime and just pause it and play again when you're ready. Go to your iPad and try it on GarageBand. But first, remember, when you make your first, second, or third Musoji or any other kind of music, we're not looking for awesomeness, we're looking for creativity. Okay. Principles and techniques, 3 or 4. Make it short. Of course, we can make long pieces of music. That's great. But in this context, make it short. And then comes the vertical sound production, which adds depth and complexity. And I'll show this in GarageBand now. Oops, not there, here. This is a Musoji that I have made, and you heard it in the beginning of this recording. Let's play it again. Okay. Now, I'll just mute this one. If you don't know how to get this, this is where we get the mixer, right? Here. Oh, and you can, and I can mute this part. It went gray instead of green. So now it's green, and I can listen to it. Now it's gray, and I won't hear it. The main part of this Musoji is this sound. But I'm not satisfied. I like the sound very much, but I'm not satisfied. It's not enough. It's not enough emotions in this one. So, and I came from this very kind of hard sound, like this. Very short, very hard, very fast. And listen to the transition between this one and this one. It's nice, but I wanted it to be a little bit more precise, a little bit more specific. So I added just one note on a string here. This one. And listen to this together. Once more. It's not, it's a little bit inaccurate. Yes, it's a little bit more concise, a little bit more precise, and I like that. But I'm not satisfied. The emoji that I'm exploring is, let's see if we can, is this one? This on the left side here, with the stars. I'm very happy. So I need the sound to be a little bit more like that as well. And you see, I'm thinking vertically, because I have this, and I have this, and I have this. This is what I try to explore. Because I spent perhaps 10 minutes to find this sound, and I said, oh yes, this is the sound I need to add. So let's go back and listen to this together with the strings. Okay, it's getting there. It's getting it to be a little bit more shiny, like I want it to match the emoji, a little bit more shiny. But I'm not quite happy yet. I need something to sparkle, because the emoji has these sparks in the eyes, like the stars, right? So I want to add another sound. Listen to this. Now, because I've been experimenting and doing lots of things in GarageBand, I knew there was some kind of a sound like this. It's actually it's called bar chimes. And if I go here, this is it. Yes. So when adding this to the sound, this is the result. Let's listen to all these sounds together. So hopefully you will listen now and feel that it's more depth and more complexity to the sound than it was when I did like this in the beginning. So now it's much more complex. And emotions are complex matters. So we need to make the sound similar. I'm not quite happy yet. That's because it gets softer towards the end, and it should, but it's still, I need something that's more lifting upwards, something that points upwards, like a positive, optimistic thing. And so I went to the glockenspiel, and I'm using the arpeggiator, which actually makes it like it plays the same note several times. And you can play with these settings. Nothing can go wrong. Just play around and see what happens if you try it. And here, not the glissando, not the scroll, but I use the pitch, because then I can do like this. Okay. So if I go back, I added this, sounds like this. upwards. I wanted to go upwards. And now it's even more complex and even more vertical, complex, and more depth. This is the sound now. So this is what I call vertical sound production, where I think you noticed how this gives a simple sound more depth and more complexity. Now we'll move to the next here. So the next part is consider kicking. I don't know if that's a word in English at all, but it's sort of saying, here it comes. There comes something now before the main theme sort of really starts. So let's have a look at what I then did in my Musoji to make this kicking or here it comes sort of thing. It's a gray part over here, up here in the upper left. I'll take out this mixing box. So it's actually a piano and it plays like this. But hey, I can't play that on piano. No way. But let's have a look. I used the arpeggiator again. Turn it on and a couple of octaves range and upwards. And when I then press more than one key at the keyboard, it plays like this. Yeah, I could do that slowly, or I could do like 8 notes. It sounds like this. Okay, so you can play around with these settings. I want to spend too much time on this now, but I used 30-second notes like this. Okay, and so I played around a little bit with this and ended up with this one. Well, not exactly. I had to edit it. If I tap the green one and I tap edit, I get in here and I can actually zoom and see individual notes and move them and adjust them and copy and paste them. So I did a little bit of copy and pasting until I was happy. Okay, I'll click done up here in the upper right. And there we go. We had all this on, sorry. So all together. Yes. So these are the principles and techniques I wanted to show you. Oh, maybe there's one more. And yes, the emotion may come forward in post-production. I'll show a little bit of that as well. And I'll go back to GarageBand, and I'll go out of this one now and demonstrate. I have some here. Post-production. I've pre-recorded a short R-Who thing. It sounds like this. It's very dry and not at all what I wanted to sound. So this button is the settings, track settings, and I can experiment with reverb and echo. And if I use reverb, no echo first, only reverb, it sounds like this. Still not quite happy. So the next thing I would do then is to try those master effects here. And just to demonstrate what you can do, I'll click the reverb and I'll hit the most extreme variation, which is Moon Doom. There are different: cathedral, ambience, chamber, club, etc. Moon Doom. Let's try Moon Doom. And I'll go back here. And the setting and the reverb is still the same, but listen at this playback. Now this is extreme. I don't want that much, but I can use a little bit. And what the point is that adding perhaps some echo, a little bit of reverb, not too much, maybe adjusting bass and treble a little bit, and suddenly we have quite a different sound. It's quite a different sound as opposed to what we had in the beginning, which was this. Right? So what I just said was that, let's see here, the emotion may come forward in post-production. Experimenting with post-production with these faders, we can really make something shine or make the emotion come forward, as I said. So next, let's go to the process of actually creating a Musoji. This is the 4 steps. Choose an emoji and reflect on sounds and emotions, and I recommend doing this before you open GarageBand. Next is explore and experiment, and maybe make a draft. Record sounds and organize them, and then do some post-production. Let's go through those steps. First, I mentioned this in the beginning. Use the yellow heads. Avoid emojis that point towards a specific sound, like laughter, for instance. It's just an advice, not necessarily, but an advice. And also another advice, a sad one may be a good start, because it's often something that we think of as a little bit slower and maybe more contemplative. So it's not so difficult to make like a fast and very kind of impressive thing. And consider movement, texture, and energy. And do all this before you open GarageBand. Now you can pause if you haven't done this, and if you want to do it, you can pause the video and tap play when you're done. The second part, it's about exploring and experimenting. So create a new project with tracks, and if you don't have another plan, try keyboards, because you have a lot of different sounds and emotions, so to speak, in the keyboards. Now, as a main ID, you only need one main ID for a Musoji, and I think it's better to work vertically on that one ID than to make a whole lot of things. That will be a longer piece of sound and more difficult to work with. So, and also, if you choose too much rhythm, it kind of locks the possibilities due to its length. We need to establish a beat. We need a little bit of time and to change it. So there's the rhythm kind of locks the possibilities in such a short piece of music or sound design. Then you can record some of your ideas, or you can do that later. I'll show a little bit of this. You can now either pause the video, or you can and test yourself. But for those who want, I will also show. If I go out of this song here, on the top in every folder you make in GarageBand, you have this plus, create song, or you have it here as well. So if I tap this, create song, you might come to live loops, but live loops are great, but not for this kind of activity. So we go to tracks, and you can scroll here and see what kind of instrument you want to use. For the first Musoji I showed you, I used the strings. Let's see. I said keyboards is a very good alternative. Let's choose keyboard right now. And if it comes up like this, you can tap here to get a regular keyboard, or you can tap it again to get this. Just experiment by yourself to see what it does. I expect most of you know it from earlier as well. And I can choose tons of different keyboards. I have the regular keyboards and the Alchemist synth with a lot of categories, different. So this is just endless possibilities. Endless possibilities. So you'll find something here. Now, experimenting is essential to be able to find your way and not only tapping things to test, but to find your way to those sounds and emotions that you would like to use in your expression. So experimenting is essential. Okay, and then we move on to record. We can use copy and paste and reorder it and edit, as I showed with the kick-in earlier. And you can add depth, as I also showed earlier. So there's a lot of things you can do when you're inside. I can show that a little bit as well. And again, you can press pause and do it yourself, or you can follow this. I'll go back to one of my Musojis here. This is just a test. I'll save the... No, not this one. I'll take the ones that I had earlier. I made a backup so I have... Yeah, I have a backup. So when you have recorded, it doesn't matter if it's not all where it should be in the timeline. I can press the headphones to hear only this track, or I can mute this track. So for instance, if I want to align these and do it all right, I can play, I can play these ones and I can listen to it. Okay, and I can zoom a little bit out and I can move it. Or if I like, I could also take, for instance, this part and copy it, make a new track. Oops, like this. And I can go down here and I can paste it here. So I get the same notes, same thing as I played on this track. Same thing as I played here is now copy-pasted down here to another instrument. This way I can work with layers or vertically. I can add different instruments playing exactly the same, which can be very useful. If you have, for instance, a melody played by a piano, you can adjust that sound in layers by adding the exact same copy-paste, just use another kind of piano. Perhaps combine an electric piano and an acoustic piano, or a synth of any kind. So, this part, record sounds and organize them. And when you're finished with this part, we go to the post-production, as I showed earlier. So that's the process. Choose an emoji, explore and experiment. That's a very important part. Then start recording, and then do some post-production. So how to use this in our classes? We covered a little bit of that initially, but let's have a look. I just made a few notes here, and it's a little bit untidy here on purpose, because I want us to just reflect a little bit. Can we explore identities using Musojis? Can we discuss emotions? Certainly it's fun. Can we use it? Oh, we can use it for making music based on intention. Although this is very short pieces, or you might call it music or sound design, but it's good for practicing to put an intention into what you create. Maybe even students, if they make these short Musojis, you can use them in some kind of presentation, like I did in the beginning of this session. Maybe you can create games, or we can create games, like the Guess Who. It's a famous game where someone has a picture of a person and someone has some other kind of characteristics to this person, and we could do that with the Musojis. I can play a Musoji for you, and you can guess which emoji is this. And we can students can make this as a game. I could do that. I could easily do that in Keynote or Pages and make that game boards and everything, but let the students do it. Let the students make that games and make the rules and make it how they want it. That'd be really, really fun. So we could use it for quite a few things, and I imagine that you will think of your own ways to do this, which is the best thing that could happen out of a session like this. I mean, that's the end. And I'll be very happy if you want to share your Musojis, and if you have your students make Musojis, ask them if you're allowed to share them, and tag me, tag Apple Edu Chats, and everyone create with hashtags, and so we can all be inspired by each other. Thank you for following this video.